The Stranger in the Woods. It had been 3 weeks since anyone had seen Dan, a small boy of 7 who had wandered too far into the dense, whispering woods behind his home. Search parties combed every inch, calling his name day and night, but the forest swallowed their shouts with its thick fog and silence. His parents, devastated, clung to hope, though it grew weaker with each passing day. Dan had tried to find his way back, but the woods seemed to twist and shift around him, as if playing a cruel game. His feet were sore, and he was hungry and exhausted. Each night brought new fears, the eerie sounds of rustling leaves, distant howls, and strange whispers that left him shivering in the cold darkness. He managed to survive on rainwater and whatever berries he could find, though he had no idea if they were safe to eat. On the 3rd week, as the sun began to set and the shadows lengthened, Dan felt utterly alone. That's when he heard it, a soft sound, almost like footsteps, coming from behind him. His heart raced, and he crouched behind a tree, peering out nervously. A figure emerged from the woods, but it wasn't anything Dan expected. It was tall and slender, its skin pale and almost luminescent in the dim light. Its eyes, large and glowing a soft yellow, gave off an otherworldly warmth. The creature moved gracefully, with long limbs and an air of quiet curiosity. Despite its strange appearance, there was something calming about it. The creature didn't speak, but when it extended a long, gentle hand toward Dan, he didn't feel afraid. There was a strange connection, as if the creature could sense Dan's fear and desperation. Without a word, it beckoned him to follow, and though he hesitated for a moment, Dan's instinct told him to trust it. The creature led him through the woods, navigating with an ease that seemed impossible. The once foreboding trees now seemed to part for them, as if the forest itself recognized the creature. The moonlight cast a soft glow on the forest floor, revealing hidden paths Dan hadn't seen before. Strange, glowing plants lit their way, and the animals that once howled in the dark now watched silently, their eyes calm as they followed the pair with interest. Dan and the creature walked for what felt like hours. The fear that had gnawed at him for weeks had melted away, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. Finally, through the trees, Dan spotted something familiar. The faint outline of his house, with the warm glow of the porch light shining in the distance. His heart leapt, and he ran forward, overwhelmed with joy. He turned back to thank the creature, but it was gone. The woods, now quiet and still, held no trace of his strange guide. Dan stood for a moment, gazing into the forest, wondering if it had all been a dream. But deep down, he knew it hadn't. With a trembling hand, Dan knocked on the front door. Moments later, it flew open, and his parents stood there, tears in their eyes. They wrapped him in tight embraces, overwhelmed with disbelief and relief. Dan never spoke much about the creature that had led him home, but sometimes, late at night, he'd look out into the woods, wondering if it still watched over him. Maybe it was the woods guardian. Maybe it was something else. But whatever it was, it had saved him, and for that, Dan would be forever grateful.